Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about King S blank blank blank. No kings, voice of the people, or voice of the Democratic Party, or voice of the people, or voice of corporations. So today we're going to talk about No Kings March, which is happening. I think this is like the second one this year. I just want to say, like, if you're going to one of these marches, you gotta make your decisions, and you take the actions which you believe are right in your heart, in the moment in which you are in. So I don't want to say that if you're going to do a thing, I don't necessarily think that people that are at these marches are working for corporations per se. This is like the last one was, it was multiple millions of people, not at the level of Black Lives Matter, but and some other historical events, but yeah. So I just want to say first out, because I know there's a lot of people, everybody's in different places in their journey in life. So so if you're at this, some people might just get mad because you're saying I'm doing this for nothing. So people who are taking this action, you do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. Take the actions that you got to take. Doing things is better than not doing things, generally. But no, we're gonna talk also. I'm gonna also espouse some criticism, and I'm gonna give some thoughts about No Kings. And just for context, I am a Native Hawaiian, and the United States is undergoing illegal colonial occupation based on a fraudulent annexation in Hawaii. So, this is the context that I come from. So I can't. It's hard to be too positive about any U.S. anything, if you know what I'm saying. I can't really celebrate any particular party of the United States because the situation that we're in. So that's like a preamble as well. But anyway, so what is going on here? So apparently, like, several million people have been out there. Several million people have been out in the streets of L.A., New York, Philadelphia, across the United States, and a few other places around the world in solidarity, I suppose, which is, that's great. If people are at minimum going to get a suntan, that's nice. Get a little vitamin D, and there's not many other vitamins because your supply chains are falling apart. Soybeans have a lot of protein. Soybeans are a very high quality source of protein and other macro and micronutrients, but you can't get access. The soybean industry is not doing too well as the U.S. collapses. So, but at least you get some vitamin D. Get on that street. Maybe Americans will be over consuming soybeans because the Chinese are not buying it. So you're gonna have to eat Cheetos soybean edition, soybean based McDonald's French fries, we're going to have soybean oil in your ethanol, we're going to have soy based Mexican pizzas as taco out Tuesday, Trump chickens out and fails to, contain with more trade wars anyone. And America's going to taco out. America's going to soy taco out. You're going to have soy tacos soon because there's nobody else to eat them. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. I got to stick on the main one. King Trump is here. King Trump is here. Just, you got to kneel, bow down, give it up. All hail to the chief, baby. As the great Duke Nukem once said. He wasn't quite a king, but he was an aristocrat. He was a duke. And Duke Nukem said, hail to the king, baby. And you got to hail to the king now. That's what time it is in America. If you don't salute, sig heil, kiss the ring, if you don't bless the crown, if you don't say your Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy gold-plated skyscrapers. If you don't say your our Father, forgive us our small hand jokes, as we forgive those who didn't vote for Trump. Remember, as you say your Our Lord's Prayer to King Trump, don't forget to make the sign of the T. Trump should change he should get the Catholic and Protestant churches. Finally, the West's dueling colonial brain COVID with religious characteristics. That virulent strain of spiritual imperialism, right? Western Christianity will finally be united under Trump. King Trump will become Pope Trump, and every American will have to be not Catholic or Protestant. See, that's the problem with America. It's divided under the plutocracy into conservative, milk drinking, oil, gas, pro-gas, Republican Protestants, and then there's like Resnick, war criminal vegetables, liberal Catholic Democrats, and then biotech, some universal death care pharma. So the problem is that there's liberal Catholics, Democrats, and there's conservative Republican Protestants. That's the problem with America. That's why it's not united. So what Donald Trump is going to do is he's going to bring America together. It's going to be one happy, one very united, very strong country, one holy Roman Empire under the religion of Trumpism, right? It's going to be the religion of the Church of Trump. You won't have all these. It's a problem with America. You got Jehovah's Witnesses. You got all these apocalypse. They broke the Christianity up into all these, people that believe that God is going to come back and be head of the one world government. I think it's the Jehovah's Witnesses. You got these Mormons that are over there, they're over there talking about having, they're doing like 65 wives to one guy. They're creating these weird cults. It's just like this. There's a church for every basically white guy in America that wants to lead some kind of harem. And Trump is going to bring it all into one harem. I'm sorry, one church. It's called the Church of Trump. Trump is also a big fan of Miss Universe pageants. He loves seeing all those beautiful women out there in the street, and then grab in those contests and grabbing whatever he wants whenever he wants. That's a great American pastime. And so Trump is going to bring the philandering, mass sexual violence and colonial violence and capitalist economic malfeasance into one big tent. It's going to be one really big tent. It's called the Church of Trump. I'm just kidding. None of that's going to happen. You're going to be fine. Okay, anyway. But yeah, so no kings though, for serious though. What's going on? King Trump, President Trump, of course, is directly being criticized in this protest. It's like, what exactly is it? Who exactly is organizing it? I mean, there's a lot of questions up in the air. I remember when I looked up the last No Kings action, a lot of the leadership has been. Holly has some links specifically to that. Let's just jump straight to that so we get some hard details. I'm so busy working on my retro cyberpunk adventure games. I don't have time to get all of this together as much as I would like to. But Holly had a list here. Let's see here. Here's some of the unfortunate aspects. No civil disobedience, no support for PALESTINE, which is being called terrible, harmful, dangerous. Advice to sit down if there is violence, demands made of the attendees, but no demands made beyond. No demands or messages beyond no kings. So what does that mean exactly? What exactly do they want? Supported by Hillary Rodham Clinton and other warmongers. That was my problem with the first one. And it's like, I mean, if you were at one and it was amazing, and if you built a socialist utopia and ended the U.S. Imperialism, if you ended the U.S. Police abuse, if you brought about prison abolition, if you brought about racial equality, if you built like high speed rail and like $200 advanced apartments, like you're in like, I don't know, some advanced country like China, at the No Kings rally, I mean, that's amazing. Good job. Like, did Cincinnati? Are you from Boston? Are you from upstate? Are you from Ithaca? Like, did Ithaca suddenly stop being a bastion of tax haven beneficiaries and rich, global plutocrats? Like, I mean, did you cleanse your state of all of its problems of racism, capitalism, colonialism at the No Kings rally? I mean, that's great. Did you have a good time? I mean, that's all. I'm kind of not even being facetious. If you had a good time, and good for you. I mean, it can be hard to keep going in America. So but I mean, some people. I mean, like if you experienced, like if it lifted your spirits, I mean, that's great. If you think that like this is going to be sufficient to change things, I mean, because it's similar. It's a little bit like the Pussy Hat rallies, but like the Pink Pussy Hat rallies almost a decade ago, but like slightly less specifically femme, because it was like a written response to Trump, but largely coming. I mean, let's be real. It's largely coming from the Democratic Party, and definitely Democratic Party insiders. And now I made the thumbnail of this specifically. Is this the voice of the people or the Democratic Party? Right? Because because there's some people, I want some people to get upset or at least think about what is the Democratic Party. Do they stand for the people? I mean, because as a native Hawaiian who has only lived under the Democratic Party, I'm sorry, but like Hawaii like empirically has the worst statistics of all the so-called U.S. states, and it's the most percentage of Democrats in all branches of government, and it has been that way basically since the fraudulent United States fraudulent annexation, illegal military occupation, and the fraudulent statehood vote. So I'm sorry, but I can't be celebrating that thing. So anyway, but some people are like, they're from conservative upbringings where they're from like a very red area of a very red state, like I don't know, Mississippi, and then they move to San Francisco and they feel so liberated. I mean, that's to invalidate your experience, but I don't have that. That's not. But also Holly is also from a very red conservative area of North America, and it's not necessarily like celebrating these victories. But anyways, but let's look at where this really comes from. The core principle behind all No Kings events is a commitment to nonviolent action and no civil disobedience. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be violent out there. I would never call for violence. Like, why would I? That would be like a violation of the TOS. Come on. I mean, well, that's not even a joke. That's like for real though. No civil disobedience. That's one of the core principles of No Kings. Okay. So it's basically, it's the moderate white liberals that Malcolm X discussed, and then unalived Martin Luther King. Please leave your Palestine flags at home on Saturday. Leave all your personal police policy demands at home. Saturday is about one thing: defending democracy and the rule of law. No effing kings in America. That's it. That's our only message. I mean, this is paradoxical. I mean, this is. I mean, again, if you want to go to this, I know people that are going to these things. That's fine. I'm not saying don't go to this. I mean, you can go to them and still have I have issues with the way that these things are happening. I mean, because one thing we'll say is there's a lot of people at it. There's a lot of people at it. There's 3 to 5 million people. It's a lot of people. If the energy moving in that direction could be slightly, some people could be shifted a little more, like let's just say leftward maybe, because it's very centrist, obviously. I think it's fair to say for America, it's very centrist sort of action. and I'm politically, I'm not aligned to the center of America, as I've already kind of stated now and historically. But let's just look at that. Okay, so this is about defending democracy and the rule. This is one of the organizers, defending democracy and the rule of law. That's it. Okay, so, but like, what is the, I can't even say this word anymore because that's how not democratic and how not rule of law. That's what it always comes down to, right? What is happening in the Middle East that is not what the people of the United States want? That's anti-democratic, and that has to be part of the discussion, right? That is not abiding by international law. That's not law. It's not a lawful action either, right? And also, it's like even amongst the conservatives and liberal average Americans, there's a majority of people that that is the will of the if it's the democracy comes from demos, the people, the Greek word for people, and the kratos, the power of the people. Most of the people want to stop unaliving and doing the Holocaust 2.0, and use that resources and revenue to support themselves. That is the will of the people, right? It's not. So it is anti-democracy to demand people not voice. Then it's also like it's kind of existential. It is existential to the United States in a lot of ways, to the American people, because the policies that are enacted in the United States, the power projection unsinkable aircraft carrier in West Asia, right, in question, that place, the policies that are executed, whether that's like keeping children in cages, violating all rule of law, violating people's human rights, having an open air prison, those are the things that are being brought home to the United States, that is boomeranging back home. And the things that have been allowed by the Democratic Party, by, Geno Joe and, Hollow Harris, right? And this is why they don't want anyone bringing those flags out there, is because it reminds people that the Democratic Party has been complicit in these greatest of mass televised, mass live streamed war crimes. It's an amazing thing. Revolution is not televised, but America's mass unalivings, though, they have been pretty well TikToked. Till Larry Ellison and the global oligarchy figured out how to control it a little more in the United States, not so much outside, but in the United States, they're doing a little better at that. So obviously there's a lot of contradictions here. There's a lot of nonsense and contradictions here. I feel this does not compute, one might say. Mr. Joe Walsh, blue check mark. Sorry, my chat computer is being a little bit weird. What is up, Gio? What is up, Hashkush? Thanks for stopping by. But again, I just want to say, like, if you like No Kings, go, you get it, King. Get it, King, or get it, Queen. If you like No Kings, get back on your king. Get go and slay, King. You know what I'm saying? If you like your king, if you like the No Kings rally, Yas Queen. If you're a female attendant at the No Kings rally, you know what I'm saying? So Occupy Democrats, new Proud Boys and Trump incels plan to attack cops at No Kings protests so Trump can't send in the military. Everyone must hear this. If you see violence, sit down. Leave only the provocateurs standing. Do not let them win. That's from Occupy Democrats. That's just something that has happened today. No Kings top 10 rally march. Lead with love, not anger. Focus your energy on what you stand for, not what you are against. Stand against. Anger fades, compassion lasts. Sing kumbaya with your fascists. That'll stop them. Look out for one another. Offer what that worked in World War II. I'm pretty sure basically what they did was that everybody like held baby sheep, and they played a lot of really good acoustic guitar. I love acoustic guitar. I love guitar. I was just playing some guitar for the Neofeud 2 soundtrack earlier today. But it's like if you play the right G chord, if you play like the right G chord and C chord, if you have enough Bono concerts, and if Bob Dylan comes back, if enough Times front pages are covered with the Beatles, John Lennon, JFK, and Martin Luther King before he got uncivil, then that's what won World War II. That's how the Nazis were defeated, when people like sang a lot of folk anthems about loving each other, and the power of love defeated fascist King Hitler. That's how it worked. I'm pretty sure that's how it worked. It's been a while since I read my history books, but look out for I'm joking. I kind of not joking, but look out for one another. Offer water, a smile, or a friendly chat to someone nearby. Check on families, elders, and people with mobility needs. Smile and greet elders. I'm not saying don't do these things. That's not like a bad thing to be. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to love other people either, obviously. Or be friendly. That's not necessarily bad. Smile and greet others. Say hello, wave, or share a word of encouragement. Small acts of friendliness build community, trust, and lower tension. Family, celebrate families and kids. I mean, like actual leftists have to do these kinds of things. You don't recruit people to learn about the problems of capitalism by just yelling at everybody always. So sometimes I do that, but I mean that's not necessarily a bad thing. Celebrate families and kids. Keep the atmosphere family friendly. Invite children to join in with chants and songs. Joyful ways to express your civic pride. Lift your voice and with positivity. Joy is. Well, I mean, we have a friend that is in positive leftist news, so I can't be all against positivity. Otherwise, Mexi gonna get mad at me. No, I'm just kidding. Joy is contagious. The more you smile, sing, and stay grounded, the safer and stronger everyone around you feels. Keep it clean and respectful. You leave our rally space as beautiful as you found it, or better. Treat it. I don't think that's gonna happen. Because I've seen these kind of actions before. They don't. I'm not gonna say who, but let's just the Fire Festival, Burning Man attendees, and people who spend a lot of time at $100 brunches, they tend to not clean up their own spaces. That's what they have Filipino under the table immigrants and Mexican help for. I mean, let's be real. So I hope they bring some of their Filipino servants to clean up their messes for them. I mean, that's the least that they could do. If you're going to have Filipino slaves, I'm sorry, long-term underpaid indentured servants, you should at least bring them to your performative events to save the corporate pretend to care party. Like, at least have them clean up after you. But for real though, be clean and respect. And in all seriousness, dude, that's not necessarily a bad thing to do that. Make your signs speak. I'm just saying they're not going to do that. Make your signs speak peace. Choose messages that uplift, creative, clever, values-based signs, draw attention without aggression or profanity. Be mindful of words and tones. Speak with kindness, even when disagreeing. Avoid insults, sarcasm, or chants. Avoid sarcasm. Hold up. No, that's it, man. I'm out. I can't. Kings, like all hail King Trump, fist of the first men. Trump, first of his name, maker of chains, invader of Venezuela, Trump, all hail Saint Trump. I can't with there's no sarcasm, man. I can't with that. Anyway, okay. I apologize to the No Kings rally. I cannot participate because I am constitutionally, ecumenically, legally bound to be sarcastic every 5 seconds. There, you see, I just did it. Model nonviolence in every action. It confronted. Breathe, stay calm, and step back. Do not engage or argue. Don't engage. Oh, that's very democratic. Don't engage. Yeah, very Democrat. Argue. Alert a guardian in the orange vest. Carry joy beyond the rally. I mean, I'm not saying like don't do these things when you go to the rally. I'm just like reacting to it. Carry joy beyond the rally. After the event, share stories, photos, and reflections that highlight unity and courage. Show the world what peaceful power looks like. Anyway, that's some of the advice at these actions. Of course, like how many people? Let me think out how many people at King's October. I was gonna get some estimates. I don't want AI. I don't need your crap. Okay, so we're like, thousands flood Richmond, DC, New York. I mean, I think it's estimate. I don't know exactly, but it's definitely not on a scale of. It's like a few million. It's not across the whole U.S. It's not on the scale of Black Lives Matter, and definitely not at the level of intensity and power of Black Lives Matter. Nationwide protests. Huge crowds are marching in major cities. Smaller gatherings have sprung up across the country for No Kings protests against President Donald Trump's administration. CNN is on the ground with several of the more than 2,500 events. Why they're protesting? Demonstrators are voicing outrage at. So this is the voice. No, this is the voice of the corporate media of the oligarchy, is CNN. Demonstrators are voicing outrage at range of Trump's policies. But so I'm saying that because whatever they say, that's who's speaking right now. Demonstrators are voicing outrage at a range of Trump's policies, but some key themes have taken over stage, including perceived threats to democracy, administration's ICE raids, and troop deployments in U.S. cities and custody federal programs, especially in healthcare. Here's what we're hearing from our protesters. So, I mean, like, it's not. I'm not pro ICE raids, which is like it's the MAGA. Random mercenary. It's basically a fascist military raiding people and committing all kind of human rights violations all over the place. Troop deployments in U.S. cities. I mean, that's even in the United States. That is basically civil war, as I've talked about previously. That is all illegal. Like what is happening? It's really like this the scale of what is happening in the U.S. Right? It's interesting. They say perceived threats to democracy. Right? It's interesting. I'm not sure what exactly is meant by that. I wonder why CNN didn't say threats to democracy. They said perceived threats to democracy. Maybe CNN is trying to sig heil to Donald Trump. They're like, no, we understand that Trump is still democratic. Even if Donald Trump becomes king, kings can hold elections. And the elections can. See, the way that the West works is as long as election. I wonder Western capitalist, colonialist, imperialist, racist systems work is as long as elections are held. You're a democracy, right? So you can actually have an election. You can just have a big sign said election happening now and have everybody watch like a Super Bowl, right? And they can text in who do you want for the halftime show? And if you vote Bad Bunny, then you get deported. And if you vote Taylor Swift, then you don't get deported. And that's an election, because election is when people flood into booths in schools and mail pieces of paper. Right, and then those votes are tallied and nothing changes. That's what elections are, right? Because 99+% of all of the will and the votes and the signatories and the senator calls and the protests of the people have marginal impact on the actual policies of Western so-called democracies, in particular the United States. Gillens and Page, look it up. It's a study on this. It's actually an academic study. So if democracy is when people fill in bubbles. It doesn't matter whether if people vote, but it doesn't change anything, it's still a democracy. Then an American king can still have a democracy, right? All you got to do is just have a vote and just have do you want President Trump to wear red or crimson today? Or would you like there to be? Do you want the McRib to come back in November, right? And then it's a democracy because you had a vote. Right? That's how the West works, right? Because Democratic Republican Party, you get the same policies with different wallpaper. So technically, maybe CNN means that there is a perceived threat to the U.S. democracy, right? Because American democracy can never be threatened. Because as long as people take number 2 pencils to Lincoln Memorial School and Washington Middle School and various dilapidated, collapsing, underfunded schools across America, go into little booths with star-spangled drapery, right, and fill in these bubbles, no matter what the bubbles do, no matter, right, then it's a democracy. Democracy in America, no matter if it's Hitler, no matter it's Uber Mecca Hitler president, if it's Uber Mecca Hitler dictator, if it's King Trump, if it's King Biden, if it's Queen Kamala, it doesn't matter who is in charge in America. It's always going to be democratic, because you can. I mean, the only way that democracy could be threatened if Donald Trump tariffed. If Donald Trump tariffed China and China bans the pencils being sent to America, if number 2 pencils are confiscated by the United States government, not just the gold like they're gonna do, right? Just like they did in the 1930s. Maybe they won't do it, but they'll confiscate all your Bitcoin. They're already doing that, and then they're selling it off for their giant exploding AI crypto bubble to benefit their the dark lords of Goldman Sachs high frequency trading algorithm programming based profit seeking and BlackRock derivatives market, dark magic. The only way that democracy could ever be threatened in the United States is if America runs out of number 2 pencils. Because if you don't have number 2 pencils, how are you going to fill in the bubbles, right? There's another way America could have its democracy threatened if booths, like if America runs out of like plyboard sided, red, white, and star spangled red, white, and blue curtains, so that if there's nowhere for people to go into booths every 4 years, 2 to 4 years, if there's no booths to vote in and there's no pencils to fill in bubbles, then democracy is threatened. Because democracy is when you play pencil games. Democracy is when you have adult black and white coloring book quiet time. That's democracy. That's the only way you could actually threaten democracy. But it doesn't matter if there's a dictator, king, fascism. Everyone in America could be like inside of a literal prison, right? Inside of a literal prison, and everyone had their personal torment nexus. We are forced to mechanically separate Tyson chicken nuggets with your bleeding, bone exposed fingers for 18 hours a day. Every single person, every liberal, every Democrat, every Republican, every MAGA, right? All the Washington red slurs and all of the Green Bay Packers fans, everyone all together could all be in sports stadiums that are just giant slave labor operations with no daylight. They can eat like their neighbor's flesh reconstituted into little pink human protein cubes. So the last American dies, right? And it would still be a democracy, because as long as the people's bloody stumps, where there used to be pointers and thumbs, can pick up pencils and color in little bubbles, right? It's something called an American voting ballot. As long as you can color in little bubbles, it's a democracy. I took that a little far, I know, but you know what I'm saying, right? Hey, what's up, Nora? Right? The study that showed that single voters in the USA had a significant impact on the policy. Yeah, voting in the United States. It doesn't. It's not just single voters. I mean, votes in general. The will of the American population has no impact on the actual policy of the United States, which is the case. Like you're gonna have that. The system is not going to change, right? The system it's where capital, the money through lobbying, through the special interest groups, through corporations, basically controlling their puppet Congress people, presidents, courts, etc. Insider trading that's completely legal. Actually, more money happens through insider privileged information going to political officials because of their position. The more money is more total net assets is given to politicians based upon simply their access to the corporate Wall Street moving information, right? It should be all illegal because it's basically like they're basically front running and they're fleecing everybody else based upon it's just basic access to like what is going to be the policy of the USDA this year, what is the new farming regulations that can change, like it can move like things from oranges to the cost of pork, all kind of stuff, to things like in November of 2019, the U.S. intelligence agencies knew that COVID was going to be as bad or worse than the Spanish flu. And then in January of 2020, Democrat and Republican Senators Loeffler and Burr transferred massive quantities of millions of dollars of their stocks out of hotels and airlines into Amazon and Zoom because they knew ahead of time that there was going to be a massive usage of Amazon during the pandemic and a massive drop in hotel stays and people using airlines at that time, right? Anyway, long story short. So that all of that is not democratic, right? All of that is not democratic. So in that sense, like U.S. democracy can never be threatened because U.S. democracy has never existed. It's government by money. It's not by the people, And so, okay, anyways, let's move on. Okay, sorry, I gotta go back here. Okay, actually, let me move on to the let me see if I can get that Gilligan page started. Just because people might say, well, so to speak, I know I have brought this up before, but in case you're wondering, not that one, not this one. Where is it? Oh, here's the King CEO of this is what actual king is. Okay, so in Neofeud, I predicted the United States would have a king CEO of the former United States of America after the smash crash and the total privatization and the fading of all democratic pretense. This is King CEO Warren Clinton Bush. I made this game and I was working on it from like 2015 to 17. So I think I got this pretty correct. This is the neo-monarchism that is returning to the United States. Trump is a little bit Trump is a little older than this guy, but in my defense, like the person that used it as a model just happened to be younger. And as actually one of the it was one of the portrait rewards for one of the Patreon patrons. Where is that one that I saved? Yeah, here it is. So the Princeton University. So I mean, this is the problem with the no king. I mean, because again, coming back to the no kings, right? The voice of the people are Democratic Party, right? So when I said like the no kings is talking about they want to keep it about defending democracy and rule of law, right? This is Joe Walsh is one of the lead organizers of this No Kings rally, right? So Princeton University did a study that showed there's more than one of these kinds of studies too. But Princeton University did a study showing public opinion has near zero impact on U.S. law. Does public opinion affect the political process? Gillens and Page found that the number of Americans for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. The preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. The one thing that does have an influence is money. While the opinions of the bottom 90% of income earners in America have a statistically non-significant impact, economic elites, business interests, people who can afford lobbyists still carry major influence. And like I looked into this more closely. It's basically like if a policy this is the reason why it's not 100% what elites want, what the business elites want for the population. So basically, like if somebody wants let's say that like 80% of America wants gay marriage at the time in the 2010s, right? If 80% of Americans want gay marriage or in the noughties or 90s or at any time, whether it becomes law is irrelevant, right? Uh, if corporations, right, the thing that actually made gay marriage pass as a law, this is one of the examples, is that when corporations deemed it, they figured out that they could make a lot of profit, right, because of weddings, celebrations, people taking vacations to places like Hawaii. So gay marriage tends to be legal in certain places because it's more profitable for gay marriage to be legal in those places, or to be more encouraged, and there's a bigger business around it, right? But once they do, people will take trips, to Hawaii and California and other places like that in particular. People are not going to go to like a redneck nowheresville town in that's running out of soybeans in Missouri to get married, right? People go to Hawaii. People go to like LA. People go to Disneyland. People go to people go on honeymoons. People go on trips. I mean, the honeymoon is not where you're getting married, but my point is that like corporations figured out if gay marriage is legalized, there's a double-digit percentage of people that will suddenly spend tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars or more money, right, on cakes, on dresses. There's all these corporate interests, right? They were like, we're gonna unlock a lot of profit. We're gonna make a lot of money here if we legalize gay marriage. It has nothing to do with like the people of America deciding, or a majority of Americans, the will of people saying, let's not be homophobic. It's not because American cultural, progressiveness shifted so people are more accepting of queer, gay people, lesbians. Nothing to do with that. It's all money. That's actually one of many specific examples of how there is no democracy in America. It's only plutocracy. Plutocracy meaning government by money, rule by the dollars, right? And the profit seeking, particularly of corporations, billionaires, millionaires, corporate interests, right? The usual, right? And it's literally, and there's no impact. The only thing is, the reason why it's not, they found it's about a 60% correlation with where the money, if a large quantities of special interest lobbying groups, individuals who are paid to push for policy in Washington, D.C., right? There's a 60% correlation with the amount of money going towards a particular policy and whether it becomes a law. But the reason why it's not 100% is not because America has 40% democracy or something. It's because the wealthy capitalist interests are not 100% aligned, right? It's like I already said, right? The liberal democratic half of the corporate capitalist plutocratic imperialist one party, right, tends to push more towards vegan, vegetarian, vegetable produce in the right. When it comes to the corporate interests are aligned more with vegetable sales and fruit sales. The Republicans, right, in California, the Salad Bowl of the United States is in California, just as one example, right? They produce like a large, disproportionate quantity of U.S. vegetable and fruit plant consumables, right? Texas produces vast quantities of beef and also oil, right, relative to California. California actually does have some oil production, but there's more. The Republican Party represents beef and dairy and oil and animal products more, partially because of where the demographics, where lines are drawn, and it just happens just like a historical precedent. But if you are invested, like if you are a multi-millionaire or billionaire cattle rancher, your primary and most billionaires actually, when millionaires tend to be sometimes more focused, billionaires diversify, right? All right, that's why if you're Bill Gates, you're invested in everything. You're in Democrat, you're in Republican. Like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, he's been invested in Fox and MSNBC. They're invested in Democrat and Republicans. They're on all parties. Right. When you have that much money, you want to hedge all your bets, and you want to make as much money as you can in every possible industry and every capitalist profit-seeking mechanism that you can. They're in on all wars. They're in on all imperialism. Right. This imperial capitalist global solidarity, in many ways. Right. But long story short, but like if you are a multimillionaire and you own a ranch or multiple ranches in Texas, and you don't own any vegetables, you don't own any farms that grow you don't own any cabbage or lettuce or broccoli or cauliflower growing operations. You don't want people eating vegetables. You want people eating meat and not vegetables, right? And that's why people like conservative, like Jordan Peterson's daughter was on a beef, turmeric, salt only diet, because he's more closely aligned with a conservative Republican of Canada, of course. But Alberta is the Texas of Canada, but he's aligned with those corporate interests. So my point is that so the corporate interests. I mean, another example, right? If you're NVIDIA, right, and you're Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, you have $4.5 trillion of completely bullshit Ponzi, over hyperinflated, dying Western, and the part of China that you claim is yours that isn't, Taiwan, is the U.S. plus Taiwan. You're making these useless, slower than Huawei, or soon to be slower very soon, and already outperformed and already collapsing, giant global capitalist bubble pumping NVIDIA wastes of silicon that are mass producing porn bots for Sam Altman because he can't produce word salad anymore. Actually, porn bots is a less unethical use of AI than telling people to unalive themselves and asking people to unalive homeless people and giving people psychiatric help that cause them to commit suicide, and also telling people to try heroin, which apparently Reddit's new AI, which is supposed to have like a better, highly coveted corpus of user input, user data in Reddit. Even Reddit's AI is telling people to start shooting up smack. So that's exploding. Good. So anyway. But long story short, but if you are Jensen Huang and you're invested in silicon computer chips, that's where your business is. He's a rich guy, right? He's in a lot of his investors are also co-invested. But if you're really leaning heavily towards computer and silicon, you don't necessarily want more belligerence with China. Jensen Huang just came out and said it's terrible that we're going to lose the Chinese market. We have 0 NVIDIA chips being sold into China. China basically has banned NVIDIA chips, and it is the biggest market in the world. It is basically the leader of the world. I mean, it is in market, in technology, and everything else. And if you're not in the Chinese market, you're dead. Which is why America is dead and NVIDIA is dead. It's dead man walking. It's a dead man crawling through. Dead man crawling over broken glass, and the broken glass is the smashed, now useless NVIDIA chips because it's all been outclassed by atom thick carbon wafers that are doing a quantum leap past all Western tech, and they're not even in the game anymore. So anyway, that's a kind of a aside. Long story short, there are people who want more belligerent with China. If you're more invested in Lockheed Martin and the military-industrial complex, more so. I mean, obviously, the military-industrial complex is pretty across the board when it comes to Democrats and Republicans. But there are some people, if you're really invested in, not winning wars, not even making functional missiles, if you're invested in making wastes of not just silicon and rare earths that you can't get anymore, because you've all been cut off by 90% of the world's niobium, germanium, antimony, and other rare earth production and refining. If you want to make useless, non-functional things like F-35s for a living, right, or not for a living, for profit, you want more saber rattling and more, just more belligerence in general, including against China. So, but what I'm saying is, so that's where the 60% is not 100%. Whatever policy has money pushed towards it gets passed, is because there are sometimes conflicting policies, right? There are sometimes conflicting interests within the capitalist class. They have different specific investments, right? But that doesn't mean that it's the will of the people in general. It's still the will of the capital, but it's more chaotic, fragmented capital, because it is somewhat anarchistic. I know that's an anarchist, but what? I'm not a capitalist. I don't even have anybody. I'm over here trying to beg people to give me money. I'm a fucking Ko-Fi. I mean, I feel it. I real, as the Gen Alpha say, real. But what I'm saying is that like they're not all on the same page. They're not all. They're not. Well, obviously they're not on Gillen's page. They don't want people to finding out about that. But they're not all invested in the same things. They're all making money from the same exact thing, and that's why there's a difference. And that's also why there's a Democrat and Republican Party in part, right? Because some capitalists want, like just as then another example of that, right? So the billionaire or millionaire investors in the Democratic Party, they're going to push for a little more pharma, like get a vaccine. I'm not saying don't get a vaccine. I'm not saying don't get a vaccine. I'm just saying they really want the Pfizer, Moderna, Novavax shots. They want Tylenol being taken. I'm not saying don't take Tylenol, and I'm not saying it doesn't, obviously that's a bunch of nonsense that it causes autism, and also the idea that autism has to be cured. I don't have time for that. Actually, one of the Silver Spook voice actors, Bridget Empire, put out a video about Tylenol and why it doesn't, why taking Tylenol is okay actually. But anyway, but my point is that like if you want to make money, if you're invested in and people taking Tylenol when they need to cure or acetaminophen or a paracetamol, whatever they call it, when it's not a U.S. corporation selling acetaminophen specifically within the borders of the United States. Like if you want to take Tylenol, if you want to get vaccines, then that's totally fine. I'm saying is that like the Republican Party and conservatives, they tend to also not be so much invested in that. They are invested in other kind of cures like hydroxychloroquine, right? Or not really cures, just they're invested in other solutions, elixirs, dare I say tonics that you can take, whether they cure you or not, or they're just placebos, right? Hydroxychloroquine. But there are actual there's other, there's this colloidal silver. There's all these weird, just quack conservative treatments that they sell. It's partially because they're less invested in the university and academics. So liberals, their constituency tends to be higher educated, university educated, not necessarily. Well, I should say university attending higher Western education, which is I have a lot of problems with liberal and conservative. Conservatives don't really do much education at all, except like read the Bible and go to PragerU, go to Nazi U, which is not a U. And then there's the liberals that are like, it's a little more, it's a little better than that, but it's a lot of half-truths and lies in their education system, and there's a lot of problems with that. A lot of it has to do with the capitalism that liberals still espouse, and imperial racist capitalism in particular that they have to kind of gloss over and not deal with, especially when it talking about today's events. So long story short, so the differences between Democratic and Republicans, a lot of it is, so again, some of the the moneyed interests, right, that are invested in Pfizer. Just as another example, you look at the blue states. I went over this on YouTube last week. If you look at the Public Health Alliance, the U.S. has a public. I'm not going to talk about the Civil War stuff so much today because it's not really what we're topic. But if you look at the U.S. Public Health Alliance, which is a growing number of states, right, that is having it's a coalition intended to share public health data, vaccine policies, and more. Right, it's basically all the blue states. Right, it's California, Washington, Oregon, New York, a lot of these Northeast states. Illinois was recently added right after Donald Trump and ICE and the U.S. military aligned with him, including 400 Texas soldiers, arrived in Chicago and basically invaded Chicago, attacked, assaulted countless American citizens and immigrants, no matter whether you're an immigrant or a citizen or not, violated all kind of international law and humanitarian law and American Constitution. It's totally not democratic. It's basically low scale civil war. It's attack on black and brown and liberal Democrat controlled areas in general, and just is basically a show of force against all of that. And it's a terroristic tactic ultimately. And so, but now it's in there. Okay, and anyways, but coming to the health, so those blue states, right? They're hugely invested in Pfizer, in biotech, in biopharma. They're also the H-1B visa areas because like Indians and South Asian in particular, which is 70% of H-1B visa people, are the number one demographic that does pharmaceutical research. They do the science, they do the actual testing and investigation and the double-blind clinical trials and all this kind of work to develop new medicine, new treatments, new cancer treatment, new drugs that big pharma can be selling, right? And I'm not saying that people shouldn't develop drugs or advance science or create new medicine or do double-blind clinical trials either. I mean, like, again, that's better than having Tylenol and cancer treatments is better than like taking horse dewormer and thinking that's gonna cure you of a disease, whether that's COVID or anything else, right? There's all kind of nonsense, right? Cancer treatments shouldn't cost $2,000 a month. Insulin should not be costing. It was up to $400 because it was profitable, right? People died in the last government shutdown. Also, shout out to the United States killing itself by shutting its government down. Like the last time there was a government shutdown, like many people died from diabetic ketoacidosis because they couldn't access their insulin, because insulin was, at that time, it was like several $100s for a month's supply, or it could be more depending on your insurance coverage, right? But why was that? Why was that the case? It was because it was profitable. They slightly tempered it down because Americans are so broke that they were starting to die and they became so emaciated, or they became so like weakened, and they're dying at such a high level. They actually had to lower the insulin cost. And there are actually some laws are passed to lower the insulin cost. But it's mostly because it was out of control and they couldn't stop their own people from dying. Not because corporations suddenly grew a heart. If they grew a heart, they wouldn't be, trying to invade Venezuela and trying to maintain the global imperial capitalist system and trying to assassinate Ibrahim Traore some more, right? They wouldn't be trying to invade through Ivory Coast, right? If they had a heart, they wouldn't allow all this to happen, because again, everything that happens in America is by the will of the corporations, right? If corporations wanted there to be peace in America, they would put peace in America. But there's not peace in America because it's not profitable right now. It was a little profitable for a while. Now it's not. Let me say that again. If it was actually profitable, if America was a place where they cared about it being relatively, safe and tranquil, the oligarchical, the billionaire, millionaire collective corporate class, they could make the policies. They pay the cops. They pay the cops. They pay all the parties. They pay the Fox News. They own Fox News. They own MSNBC. They can control the culture of the United States ultimately. They don't care. Right? They stopped the coup last time. They stopped Donald Trump's January 6th coup. Right? They stopped the balkanization and the breakup of the United States because it was not good for business, because there's more money to be made extracting wealth from Africa, Asia, Latin America through a global colonial imperial system than if America is the headquarters of the empire, which you need to continue to exercise this like neoliberal fake rules-based imperial capitalist order. It's like the liberal face on the world system, and that made sense for 1950 to 2022, 4, whenever exactly. Hard to say. But this time they don't care. That's the difference, I think, between the 20 teens, right, and then they because who actually stopped Donald Trump from taking over the United States? Google, Twitter. Jack Dorsey, people flock to Blue Sky thinking like this is going to be the solution. Jack Dorsey was at the helm of a lot of social media coverage when Donald Trump was building all of the racist, bigot-filled MAGA of the 2010s. Jack Dorsey made millions, maybe billions, from Donald Trump being one of the top posters in the 2010s. And everybody's like, oh, Jack, a lot of the liberal like white flight they did a digital white flight like the Caucasians leaving Detroit in the late 20th century. They all went to Blue Sky going, oh, now we have a safe space to be in. And it's like Jack Dorsey has recently brought in MAGA and transphobes and more conservative right-wing people into Blue Sky, and everybody's like kind of fleeing to Mastodon or going somewhere else. And I'm not saying like I'm not pro transphobes, I'm not pro bigotry and MAGA conservatives, obviously, but Twitter got rid of Trump not because Jack Dorsey suddenly stopped believing that that MAGA. Jack Dorsey didn't suddenly go, oh, I see the error of my ways, I'm going to support, queer people, and I'm going to not platform racists and bigots and anti-immigrant and MAGAs, because that hatred is I've discovered some kind of moral clarity in myself. I'm billionaire CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, before Elon bought it, right? It was profitable for Jack Dorsey to have MAGA and Trump on his platform because that was millions and millions of people. And now it's profitable for Blue Sky to have MAGA and transphobes on that platform because that is profitable now. You know what I'm saying? Just like it wasn't, the corporations didn't suddenly, everyone didn't say, oh my God, I am the CEO of, this massive hotel conglomerate, Marriott conglomerate. Yes, I was once a Mormon, closeted, and I subdued. I had all these pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger and John Cena on my wall, and I touched myself in the night, but I said it was just the demons, moving my hand towards my ding dong. But now we, the corporations of America, we're no longer homophobic, and now we see the light. We're all out. We're no longer in the closet, and now we're out, beautiful, publicly gay. And trans and lesbian and queer CEOs, capitalists of America, and we love gay people now. It's not because they suddenly found a heart. Well, there's still, like, Peter Thiel is a gay man. He's also a conservative, right? They didn't find their heart. They found that it was profitable to allow gay people to get married, particularly in California and Hawaii. Jack Dorsey didn't suddenly stop being MAGA. Jack Dorsey wasn't like joined MAGA in 2016 or 17, and then he left MAGA when he started Blue Sky so that, all the Tumblr kids and Tumblr Democrat and liberal and left people could all have a safe space to post about galaxies and PS4 controllers. I mean, I like talking about retro games and galaxies. I'm not trying to throw shade at you if you left Twitter, started a Blue Sky sometime in the last 2 years for whatever reason. I'm saying when Jack Dorsey started, he didn't start it because Elon bought the fucking platform. And it was he pivoted because the user base of the network effect of social media platforms and big tech platforms, which is that they evolve their own spaces based upon the kind of confluence of mass, the human graph, the human Venn diagram of who arrives tends to guide the evolution of the platforms, because the value of the platform is who's there, right? To a large extent. It's not so much really what exactly the tech. Oh, is there a retweet button or is there a retweet button? The people talk about that kind of shit. We're Linux nerds. I mean, no shade if you use Linux. I mean, keep working on it, because I need a Neofeud 2 version that works on Linux. But if some people like really obsess about the tech, and that's exactly why people don't only. It's just not a lot of why. If people move platforms because the tech was better, everyone would be on Red Note and Chinese platforms. But China would kick a lot of people out because they can't have so much disinformation and ignorant people and just uneducated people on their platforms. It'd just be too annoying. But if people actually use the platforms that were better, they wouldn't be using a lot of these platforms. They would actually migrate. There are better platforms out there, but there's very few users. But they don't have the power because they don't have the network lock-in effect. They don't have the winner-take-all power law, exponentially growing dominance, right? That Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube have. And now the penetration, market cornering. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, long story short, Jack Dorsey chose to start Blue Sky because he was off of Twitter, and he said at that time, I was like, well, I'm gonna pivot away from where I was, and we're gonna draw away millions of people that don't want to see Trump tweets and don't want to see those kind of things at that time, right? But when January 6th happened, Twitter, it was decided by a big enough confluence, right? Again, coming back to Gillens and Page, it was a big enough confluence of the rich, billionaires, corporations, executives, CEOs, etc. Enough of them said, if Donald Trump takes the United States of America and America becomes a Third Reich and America stops even pretending to be a democracy and is openly white supremacist, racist, totalitarian dictatorship with no elections at all. If there is kings in America, that is not beneficial to. There's more money to be made, because one of the knock-on impacts will be, look at what's happening now. Look at what's happening now. A lot of the rest of the world is going to go, we don't want to do business with America. I mean, a lot of people are already turning on America in the 2010s. So Donald Trump did actually, he caused the China was set to surpass the United States in 2035 before the 2020s. As projections by the RAND Corporation, the U.S. military, and the Pentagon, and U.S. intelligence, they projected China would surpass the United States in economic, political, and military power by 2035 at the current rate. When Trump took power in 2016, after a year or two, it was pushed up to 2027. And a lot of that was because he was very destructive, because of the things that he said. Because when he started attacking European countries, he started talking about African countries like these are just a bunch of shitholes. Even a lot of people around the world, most people around the world, other countries are not white. A lot of the rest of the world, the Europeans, like they don't want to be seen publicly as defending somebody who was so kind of publicly gross, right? And so and a lot of his policies also were backfiring too. But so Trump actually, because he broke up relationships in the Western U.S.-led international imperial liberal capitalist order, right? That includes Korea, Asia, it includes Europe, it includes Africa. The whole world is integrated into this, except Russia, China, Iran, and the quote unquote rogue states, Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, right? But the whole world has been integrated into that global imperial capitalist system led from the United States for the benefit of these people, the ultra rich, right? So the Democrats coming back, when Trump tried to hold on to power, if Trump had seized the U.S. Capitol and taken over completely, much of the rest of the world, right, would have had a lot more impetus to turn on the United States, right? A lot of Asia, ASEAN, Europe would be like, oh my God, we can't even pretend like we're the free world anymore, because Europe is led from the United States. They're deeply vassalized. Much of the decisions, that's why they even overtly, the European leaders turn to Trump and call him daddy, even though, they talk about, all the problems that he is causing, and he's so gross and anti-democratic and crass, and he can't be sentences. But they still bow to him, because they're not buying necessarily to Trump, they're buying to the global oligarchy, which flows through the United States, right? So like behind Trump is global imperial capital, that chaos of all those corporate interests. And so the European leaders are run by that. Right? We call it the blob, you call it whatever the hell you want to call it. It's just a global, chaotic oligarchic structure. But what if enough of them want something, like none of them want the United States to have healthcare, universal healthcare. And America would never have that, right? Right? That where the rich can all agree. Like the rich might disagree. Should we have more investment in pharma or more investment in beef if we have the same amount of money? Should we invest a little more in oil or a little more in renewable energy? There's a disagreement. Some of them are more invested in oil. Like the Republicans are more in oil, and that's why the U.S. is saying we're done with green technology this year. Trump has basically declared that we're not going to do any more renewable technologies. That's why Elon Musk is upset with him, right? So Elon and Trump's falling out where they have disagreements is another example. Elon is upset that Trump has cut a lot of Elon Musk's Tesla, renewable technology, and electric vehicle subsidies that he was getting for a long time for his companies, right? But so that's why you can never have 100% the interests of capital lobbying and bribery of all Western governments, particularly the United States. It can never be 100% because the capitalist class is not aligned 100%. But where are they aligned? They're aligned on continued immiseration of the masses for the profit of the few, right? So we're talking about healthcare. That's what's being cut, right? Because Democrats and Republicans funders. The Democrats, yes, they're holding up the ACA. They say we have to keep the Affordable Care Act. We need to not let the support through Medicaid and people's support for their healthcare costs to go away. And I'm not saying that it's bad that people get support for things like the healthcare costs. There's some SNAP benefits and WIC and these other food and medicine support programs for the masses that Republicans want cut. Now the Democrats are not there because they're actually going to really and ultimately stand for it. Like they're there to make it seem like the United States has a democracy, and the Republicans and Democrats are both owned by basically the same people, and they all want those healthcare cuts happening. There's actually but there's a slight. The Democrats also lean slightly more on the healthcare. Not necessarily. Democrats are not leaning on the side of Medicare for all. They never will. But the Democrats lean on the side a little bit more of giving money from the government to people for their healthcare bills. Why do they do that? Right? Why does McDonald's ask you to? Why does McDonald's give and instruct people who are hired at McDonald's as clerks, right, or cooks, to sign up for food stamps for SNAP and EBT? Because, right, that subsidizes payment that people McDonald's doesn't, not because like it's bad to have food stamps, but that helps McDonald's to pay less wages to people who work at McDonald's, so they can take more of that as profit, and that comes straight from U.S. central bank government, quantitative easing infinity policy of mass money printing, and so they can pocket that money. It's a kind of a backwards it's a more complex wealth transfer structure that does benefit certain. If you have a lot of workers that work, ideally what should just be is everybody should make enough wages that everybody can afford food, and food should just be cheap and not inflating to ridiculous levels, right? Like, I mean, you can like look in the mirror, look in China, just see what they do. It's not what they do. They just the prices of things remains low, and certain goods are controlled. And then you have a socialist. There's actually a communist party and a socialist system that keeps everything working appropriately. That reigns in corporations and the oligarchy and billionaire class when necessary. Like for example, Evergrande when it comes to the housing market, right? But in the United States, the Democratic Party, which has more money and more lobbying coming from pharmaceutical industries, coming from the health industries, coming from the biotech, like I've already talked about, right? They are paying money to their Chuck Schumers, right? They are funding money towards lobbyists that are leaning on Chuck Schumer, right? The super PACs that are behind Nancy Pelosi, that are behind Bernie Sanders, that are behind all, right? They're prescription drugs. Prescription drugs. They don't want Medicare for all. They're never going to get Medicare for all. America will never have universal health care because that does not benefit capitalists, right? But if you can enshroud, like, we're going to help Americans afford their health care, right, by having these programs that will give, like, let's say you have $2,000 worth of drugs this month you're going to have to pay for, right? They're talking about that's what it's going to jump to. The enrollment cost and the cost of all healthcare is going to like maybe double for a lot of people or more. Let's say you got $2,000 worth of medical expenses this month. If the Affordable Care Act policies get cut, suddenly people are going to like lose a whole bunch of that money that is just coming straight from the U.S. federal government that's going to people's pockets. It's a wealth transfer from the U.S. federal government into people's pockets and then into corporations' profits, right? If that money doesn't come from the federal government through that fence, you're basically, people in the United States are basically they're like shells that corporations put money that's theirs on for a second while they wait to pick it up. People are like, humanoid refrigerators for corporate dollars that flow from the imperialist central bank money printers straight into your pocket. JP Morgan actually takes 1% of all the food stamps. Just one example. Cut. So they don't ever want it to go down either, right? Because if it goes down, then like that's a percentage they're not going to take as a tapeworm, right? BlackRock takes a percentage of all subsidies of housing. So when the federal government prints that money and it gives it to somebody in California that needs, insulin, they need to pay for their cancer drugs this month, or their grandmas, right? If that money doesn't come out, go into their pocket, and it goes straight to the corporation. It looks like, oh my God, whatever is going to be the thing. What's going to have to happen is people are either going to die. There's going to be revolution in the United States, but most likely this is what's going to happen, right? The prices of those drugs is going to have to come down a lot. I mean, it's a combination of those things. The price of drugs is going to have to come down because people don't have access. Did you know, actually, if you don't have healthcare in California or in a lot of United States, but I remember one specifically in California, if you call an ambulance and they find out you don't have healthcare, the price, if you don't have healthcare coverage, if you don't have employer-based health insurance, the price of an ambulance ride gets cut in half almost. So that's one other example, right? It's a straight wealth transfer from people who have money, right? The healthcare system in the United States is not really about healthcare. It's a universal wealth extraction system, right? If there is money to take from you that's plausible, we're going to take that from you and give it to the healthcare company. If you don't have money because you're too poor, right, you're still going to get the ambulance ride. I mean, the care can be worse, and there's a lot of problems if you're poor in America. But like the literal cost of the healthcare drops when you don't have the money, right? Because ultimately, I have a whole video about why the capitalist system is not just about making money; it's about control of the masses of the population. If Americans, like, it's basically they're always trying to judge. Okay, at what point are Americans going to rise? At what point is the masses going to rise up and basically mass execute or cause some actual revolutionary action? I mean, like Mao and the Chinese in the 1940s, the Soviet Union earlier in the 20th century. Right? At what point will the New Deal got close? Did it succeed? Right? The American communist socialist mass people power in the earlier 20th century, like between Russia and China, there was another almost revolution failed, and that's part of why China is where it is, because it didn't fail and it hasn't been rolled back. Soviet Union succeeded, and they had a lot of big implosions in the '89, but not completely though. Actually, there's actually a push to actually in international law, there's actually a push to say the Soviet Union never ceased to exist, because a lot of what Gorbachev signed and a lot of what was asked, none of that was actually legal. So there's actually an interesting fight there. But anyway, long story short, that's a question people ask. Not like how much does the healthcare cost? It's how much can billionaires, capitalists, corporations, in this case, health, medicine, medicine, pharmaceutical companies, and hospitals, and the healthcare industry, how much can they get away with extracting from you until revolution or overthrowing of the system and kicking out all of the capitalist class, right? That's the question. So like, if the cost of the drugs gets too high, they just drop it, and it's tailored for each individual household, right? So if the affordable care, if the ACA gets cut, what really is getting cut is the U.S. federal money that's going to come to Americans, that's going to go straight into healthcare corporations, which are, again, funded and operated more so in Democratic states, Democratic area codes, and Democratic representatives and senators, right? Have more money coming from that direction. That's part of why that's not, a lot of this is just theater, but that's part of the lockdown. Part of this is the capitalist class is just fleecing it's just like ripping off the 99% to the nth degree at the same time. It's another thing that's happening. But it's a choice of like, is the federal government of the United States gonna give money through the fence of the American people into pharmaceutical companies, or are they gonna give it through the fence of the American people into beef or somewhere else, right? Because obviously, if you're in the beef industry, you don't want that money going into a pharmaceutical. If you're a Texas rancher and you're a Texas oil driller, you don't own a healthcare company. You don't own a drug company. You don't have stock in a healthcare company. You don't sell vegetables. You don't want that money going to vegetables and going to expensive pharmaceuticals, right? Not because you care or don't care about the American people. It's just like you're not in that profit-seeking business called privatized healthcare. You're in the oil. You're in the beef business. That's the only difference between the two parties of the so-called United States. So that's the fight. Is which of the two corporate, so what I'm saying is that which of the two corporate parties, right? And that's the same struggle of the No Kings. It's not a struggle between, I would say, it's not really a struggle between the people and some totalitarian, fucking wannabe George Orwell novelists version of the future. And I'm not saying that I am the wannabe George Orwell. I'm the wannabe Willie Gibson. So that's a difference. No, but I'm like, well, not that, because I actually want to say more than just liberal visions of the future. Orwell was an operative for the MI6 and CIA. So that was trying to basically attack communism by painting the way Britain actually is as the so-called dictatorship of communism and socialism. Um, the Democrats don't want the United States, right, to be, the funders of the Democrats, right, they don't want too much power to be going into those same industries like the beef and into the non-medicine, non-official, double-blind clinical trial tested formal healthcare industry, pharmaceuticals, right? But the conservative, they want alternative treatments. They want beef. They want oil, right? And I mean, I'm not saying that ultimately Democrats don't really want oil either, but they want Tesla stock. Well, they wanted Tesla stock. I don't know. They're feeling a little different about that now. Elon kind of really wrecked that whole scheme for them. Because the whole point of the Tesla was so that Democrats could invest in the idea of solar, wind, electric vehicles, and renewable technology. But they're never actually going to build that stuff, right? Because it was just a Ponzi pyramid scheme. Tesla was 1% of all actual car production, and it was valued more than Toyota, GM, Chrysler, and all the other car companies combined. It was always a pipe dream, right? Because if there was ever renewable energy on Earth, imperialism, capitalism would die, because part of the imperial capitalist global system is about controlling energy flows across the planet, and the sun shines everywhere and the wind blows everywhere, right? And oil comes out of the ground in specific places. One of them is Venezuela. And shout out to the Nobel War Prize for giving it to the U.S.-backed dictatorship far right winger they want to install. That's Maduro's rival. There's also bipartisan support for that, by the way. Democrats are into anti-democratic attacks on Venezuela. They're not coming after that. They don't want to talk about the Middle East. They don't want to talk about what's actually going on in the world, right? When it really matters. They just want to talk about, let's not have, because that's who they are. The Democrats are the other half of the corporate capitalist elite that have slightly different alignment on certain industries, but they're all in alignment with never having universal healthcare. They're all in alignment with making the masses poor, extracting as much wealth as possible, right? Not giving affordable housing, healthcare, food, cost of consumable goods. They don't care about inflation. They don't care about all of that. They don't care about any of that. They're all in lockstep with that. They don't imperialist wars, imperialist invasions, color revolution attempts, NED, US, necessarily those specific or any kind of global influence operations, subjugating Africa, getting rid of the Alliance for Sahel states, stopping the African Revolution, stopping BRICS, a global multipolar world, moving towards socialism. They're all for that. They're all for anything to do with that. But there's some of them are a little more invested in vaccines and vegetables, and some are more invested in hydroxychloroquine and oil. And it's not no kings, it's no less oil drilling and beef billionaires and more big pharma and Resnick, which is they're the ones that send all the money to unalived Palestinians. More salad bowl and more big pharma billionaires. They're not from no billionaires. Billionaires are kings. So we talk about but coming back to this, we talk about kings. I mean, any sufficiently advanced capitalism is indistinguishable from a totalitarian dictatorship. Any sufficiently advanced corporation or a group of corporations is indistinguishable from monarchy. That's the whole point of Aliens and Alien Earth. That was the whole point of cyberpunk, partially, I think. But a lot of people are just like, oh, I want neon trench coats and flying cars and really tall buildings with little pinpoints of light because it looks cool. And but I mean that's actually a lot of the point. I mean, and that's my point too with Neofeud as well. And that's why I call it Neofeud, is because feudalism is back, baby. Hail to the king to bring it home, and so. And I mean, so that's like on a I went really macro with that, but in that sense, there has only ever been kings in America, right? The king's name are Johnson and Johnson, right? I mean, people should have Tylenol, and the Tylenol should be low cost, subsidized, and not for profit. People should not take Tylenol so that they can take horse dewormer. There shouldn't be horse dewormer kings like Trump's friends in the Robert F. Kennedy backed corporations that are selling these alternate BS cures. There shouldn't be BS cure, Jesus Tylenol, and or there shouldn't be right-wing Jesus Tylenol salesman kings, and there shouldn't be Tylenol salesman kings, because Johnson & Johnson is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that has committed all kinds of heinous crimes, including part of extracting mass capital from the people, overcharging people for everything, right? Among other things. Like the Sacklers family, they are deep in the healthcare industry too. The Sacklers that, caused potentially 1 million or more dead Americans from the intentional pushing of overprescription of opioids, such as OxyContin and fentanyl, knowingly instructing their doctors to go to basically like depressed, collapsed, like South Carolina mining towns and the Rust Belt detritus areas, and basically tell people you'll get your job back, your life back, and you'll be a happy, whole person again if you just get on this not heroin that's called OxyContin or whatever it happens to be. That's literally, they would fly doctors to Hawaii for free, and they'd give away like iPhones and new like Audis to doctors who were not bribed, just like the Senate and Congress and all of the US government is not bribed. They just have really expensive lunches and like go on plane trips with their friends. They're very good friends who give them all kind of nice things and $100,000 gifts. They're just very good friends. But anyway, so the doctors are all brought to Hawaii on this Hawaiian vacation to Kona to see the beautiful idyllic beaches and the paradise and the sun and the fun. Hawaii, it's just like ocean and mountains to me. I'm like, well, I don't know what the big deal is, man. For real though, a lot of that is Western hype. Like New York City is about as New York City is about as un-New York City as I think Hawaii is. The secret, Hawaii is actually raining a lot of the time. Hawaii is actually more not sunny than always sunny Philadelphia. Hawaii is not always sunny. Hawaii rains all the freaking time. Like where I'm from, it rains 3 times a day, every day. I'm very close to Waikiki. People all get mad. And why did the United States state of Hawaii government not stop the rain from happening? Pro tip, okay, for people who have no education from the West, the weather does not respond to the whims of the Expedia or the book, the Expedia.com customers, or the people who are trying to find their piece of paradise, in 2 weeks out of their miserable life, wasting their money on Waikiki. I'm sorry, that's not how it works, buddy. The weather does what it wants. It's empirical. The weather does what the weather is going to do as a natural phenomenon in the world, no matter what narrative is spun. But New York is also like that, and the United States democracy is also like that. New York, I was extremely unimpressed. It's like the food was all crap. The people are not very, I guess they're as pushy as you might expect. And it was like, Central Park is crap. This place is like super compact. The subway is falling out. Everything is collapsing. It's all gross and falling apart. Why do people want to come to this place? It's because West is very good at lying and propaganda and marketing, and lie, cheat, steal, kill, right? It's colonialism applied to 21st. Marketing is just colonialism, imperialism applied to mass mind control after global revolutions start happening, and you have to start pretending to be good, and you need to start selling vacations, and the invention of the plane. Anyway, I'm kind of off my topic. So, but the United States doesn't. The kings of the United States are the kings of the corporations. Like, there already are kings. There's never not been kings. Kings took off the crowns, right? When the elites started losing their heads during the French, not really revolution, it's more the French pissed off head chopping. Because as I pointed out, if the French Revolution was really revolutionary, France would have been exporting liberation to Africa rather than keeping them all in chains, which they still are doing to this very day, trying to reinsert the puppet that just got kicked out of Madagascar after assassinating 22 people right? If France was trying to take 99% of all the revenue from Nigeria's uranium, as Nigerians were 80% of the population in the dark. So France never had an actual revolution. Otherwise, they would, they had chopped off certain of their elites, right? Because really, reality is it's never really a full monarchy when it comes to these unjust systems. There's always some kind of oligarchic, aristocratic, corrupt system of the lords and the ladies and the rich groups, and there's never one. There's always a confluence of these. It's always somewhat chaotic. They're always fighting each other to a certain extent. And the king, even the closer you get is absolute monarchs, but absolute monarchs were never fully absolute. It kind of the West, whether it's the Romans or the Greeks or the Europeans in the last several centuries, they kind of vacillate between more absolute, like Louis XIV was the Sun King, was one of the more absolute monarch, to more oligarch aristocracy group of unjust leaders, right? So it's either the power is more in a group of unjust leaders or more centered in a one unjust. Now Donald Trump is more like a one Sun King style, horrible, terrible, ultra rich, privileged, unjust, not doing the will of the people leader. Right, but if you get rid of Trump, that doesn't bring about democracy. That brings about a bunch of kings instead of just one king. Right, so that's another thing, right? Because the No Kings rally is all about we got to get rid of Trump. Once we get rid of Trump, we can go back to what 2019 when like the United States, or sorry 2022, 2023. When the masses of the population were getting massively poorer under Biden and the Democrats. So some of the greatest wealth transfers to the 1% from the 99%. Again, when it really counts, when the policy really matters. When what was Biden was he peaceful? Right? Because it's all about peaceful protests. Was Biden peaceful? He started one of the biggest, most destructive wars, the war in Ukraine. I mean, and yeah, he did start. It was the bipartisan thing, but he was part of launching that whole process leading up to 2022 by pushing more and more U.S. and NATO and Western military installations and funding and political backing and training and military into the bulwark proxy, basically U.S.-controlled government and state of Ukraine. And if he hadn't done that, none of the things that happened after February 2022 would happen. And actually, that's a lot of the self-own of the collective West is this failed proxy war, which that was the beginning of the end. I mean, because before Trump did his tariffs, hundreds of billions of dollars was seized from Russian assets. It was basically cut out of the U.S. dollar. That was the beginning of the end. If there is any real solid beginning of the end, it's not really. It's more of a slide towards the end. But if there's a real jump towards the end of the U.S. empire, it was lifting hundreds of billions of dollars of Russian-controlled dollars. Whatever you think about Russia, I mean, a lot of people maybe Russia's a Nazi dictatorship and they gotta be stopped at all costs, including like all of our dollars and all our healthcare and housing and food money. I mean, okay, buddy, like I'm sure it's gonna work out for you. I mean, it's in that sign right there. Look at that sign. Ukraine over Putin is in the No King sign, and that's that. The Democratic Party was more on that side too, right? So there's a split. The Democratic Party wanted to focus more. Like they all want imperialism, they all want capitalism, they all want a global colonial hegemonic empire to extract the wealth of everyone from the whole planet Earth for a tiny minority of people at the top, mostly cis white straight guys like Elon and Bezos. But when it comes to Ukraine, the Democrats were more on that side. Again, it's one of the splits. The kings of the racist capitalist imperialist world were split. The Democrat kings more wanted the Democrat kings. They wanted more belligerence in the European Russian edge of the world, in the European theater. They wanted more Eurocom imperialists, right? The Republican edge, a lot of it has to do with the way that things fell out during the Clinton versus Trump election, but there's some other kind of wedges that happened earlier than that. But because of all these attacks, the Russiagate and Hillary Clinton, accusing Donald Trump of Russians hacking her emails and all this kind of stuff. None of that was ever proven. So I have a whole video about CrowdStrike that goes into how the see if I can find that. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find that one. Let me see. Okay, it's I gotta go look way back. But you know, there is an event that happened that was called the event that happened about a year and a half ago, where all Windows computers of a vast number of various versions suddenly shut down and ceased to work, and like billions with a B of people here, CrowdStrike, seeding your own destruction, where billions of people suddenly lost the ability to operate their kiosks or use their kiosks at airports. Airports shut down across from Australia to India. South Korea had a hospital machinery going out, EKG machines. You had like basic teller, credit card, computers in grocery stores suddenly shut down because of this crowd. But CrowdStrike was one of those Democrat-backed, Democrat-supporting entities that wrote basically completely false articles, and also aligned with Bellingcat, about how Russia was hacking Hillary Clinton's emails, and CrowdStrike had the solution. That's part of how they got their job, as they're pushed up as one of these major, amazing cybersecurity firms that literally, because of their own failures to properly double check and and correctly test and bug test their Friday update rollout, they caused the total collapse of the entire Windows system. And that's another reason why everyone's getting on Harmony OS, Chinese OS, Huawei. They're getting into the Baidu satellite network. They're getting out of Western and US software operating systems of all kinds. It was already started at that time because it was a huge vulnerability. China has actually said, you're going to use the Kingsoft. Speaking of Kings, no Kings, only the Chinese Beijing-owned Kingsoft, right? Because the Chinese are asking all their internal government officials to only use and release documents internally in their own indigenously produced Chinese word processing system. It's a rival to Microsoft Word, right? And they have a whole complex that rivals all the Microsoft products, all the Microsoft Windows, everything else too. But they in the last 2 weeks, they just said everything cannot come through Microsoft Word. So anyway, and that has this all connected to the Democratic Party's internal. It's all Western, but it's more aligned with the Democratic Party's failure, which is to target and pin the loss of the 2016 election onto Russia, and Russia using Trump as some kind of stooge to overthrow America. Which, I mean, people forget that. I mean, these nonsense brain worms are still in a lot of people's mind. So some people are gonna stop watching this video right now and get really upset just because I said that, probably. So I mean, this is, I guess, a little bit of a self-defeating since I said that. But I mean, I can't go to these No Kings rallies because I have a difficulty accepting and repeating bullshit and lies and incorrect half-truths and disinformation. And I'm sorry. Like, I'm a computer scientist. I even looked into it myself. I was like, after the gigabit, the bandwidth that was accessible in the supposed Russian hack of Hillary Clinton's emails, and you take the latency, the time with which it would take for the signals and the quantity, the number of megabytes of information that was supposed to have been transferred out, that was claimed by CrowdStrike or by some of the people that worked at CrowdStrike and by the Clinton administration, right? And they're cybersecurity experts. These are not cybersecurity experts. These are like Brzezinski's failed sons of the empire, fucking Tom Clancy. These people like watched Hackers 1995 and The Matrix, and they basically made up a bunch of stuff that Hillary Clinton and like boomer political masters of the universe wonks in DC would eat up. It's a bunch of millennial nieces and nephews of Clinton and Biden and Obama basically made up a bunch of bullshit that their boomer elders thought sounded good, and they said, yeah, you're gonna have a job in cybersecurity. That's why CrowdStrike is a joke, right? And the CrowdStrike's biggest impact is destroying the Western software operating system and word processor dominance. Right? I think I'm actually playing this. Sorry. So so my point is that like so the split. So there is a split when it comes to the Republican Party. Of course, they want to focus. The conservatives want to focus more on China, less on the European theater, in part because of that split during the 2016 election, I would say. And then they also want to focus a little more on Central South America. But I mean, at the end of the day, they all want imperialism. They all want it, right? For certain political reasons within the context of the U.S., some of them have lent more towards imperialism in certain hemispheres of the world than others. But at the end of the day, they all want a imperialist attempt to control the world in Europe, in Asia, Pacific, or in Central South America, or in Africa. All of those will benefit everyone who is diversified their portfolios across in the BlackRock or through State Street or through Bill and Melinda Gates. Bill Gates has his own fund. He's co-invested with Warren Buffett, or he was invested with Warren Buffett. And there's a whole bunch of these hedge funds that basically just take all your revenue that you've got and basically put it into beef, soybeans, imperialism in Europe. They invested in Canadian gold mines, Canadian gold mining companies that own Mali's gold. Oh, I'm sorry, they used to, but now they're broke, and that's why you're having austerity in the West, is because you can't control the global South resources anymore. But nobody in Canada or U.S. is ever going to say that, right? Donald Trump's authoritarianism, right? In part is because the West and the capitalist world can't control the majority of the global. They can't control the majority of the global majority's oil, coltan, copper, lithium manufacturing. They definitely can't control China, which is the entire world's economy, basically, and the industrial and technological and renewable energy and climate and everything solution at this point. And the solution to the Western capitalist global system, which is socialism with Chinese characteristics in a multipolar world, that is built on win-win cooperation, including every day that these things are happening, there's like 1,000 new events happening in the global, in the Central South America, Africa, and Asia. I can't even keep up with it all. It's too fast. And as I said in a previous video, to scale, to go even more macro, even bigger picture, that is really what is happening, is that the United States, its people and its corporations and its billionaires, and the European and the Western collective system, that is not even the antagonists in the world right now. The antagonists are the masses and the people of Asia, Africa, Latin America that are all collectively rising up. It's the African revolution that is not stopping. Like, it is not stopping. It's not going back into the barrel. They're too busy getting free. They're too busy in doing what Kwame Ture, because I'll talk about nonviolence in these protests. And I'm not saying be violent, but Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso and the new head of Mali that is saying no Americans can come to Mali. If you're going to charge us $10,000 to go to the U.S., you can't come to Mali and benefit from our growing a prospering country that's benefiting us all after we kicked out the U.S. and French imperialists, right? That actually required, at least not everybody. Everybody doesn't all die when people get militarized and get active and organized and ready to do any and all things necessary, right? Some people died. They were U.S. and French-backed paid thugs, right? That were just massacring people. Right? That's why a lot of Africans, and then the West don't realize, but in Africa, it's full of so much death and violence, and unnecessary amounts of death and violence, because the U.S. and Europeans are constantly paying and arming extremists to do that, to keep Africa disrupted, the whole continent, right? And it takes like the trained militant soldiers of Burkina Faso's military, led by revolutionary socialist, anti-imperialist Ibrahim Traore, led by the Niger's leader, to push back against, and actually supported by Russia. That's another reason why they want to talk about Russia. Or they're all mad at, all of the imperialists are mad at Russia, because Russia is helping and has been helping other countries to get free from the greatest profit seeking. Again, if it's all about profit, the greatest profits are not to be made in the United States. They're to be made extracting 90% of the world's work, resources, and anything else they can possibly get their hands on. And so that's why they're all ultimately against Russia, because of what position it holds historically and now. They're all ultimately against China because of what position China holds historically and now. All Democrat, Republican, all the capitalist class are all against them all. They want to access Chinese markets, but they are against actually what China stands for, what its socialism of Chinese characteristics, the PRC, the CPC, and ultimately the Chinese people, because the Chinese people are what make that system happen, right? And so so on that scale, right? This has nothing to do. The king of America, whether it's one king or 10 kings or 50 kings, right? It's kind of irrelevant. It's all a dictatorship of capital. It's all, if a king is just somebody who doesn't respond to the will of the people and does what he wants, with or without the approval, the votes of the people, then there has never been anything but kings in the United States in 2025, 2020, 2018, Obama administration, Bush 1 administration. Throughout the whole civil rights movement, there's been nothing but kings. Through the 40s, there's been nothing but kings, right? In the 30s and the 20s, they almost got rid of a king, and then they cut a new deal, and the king said, capital, the dollar is still king. You failed. There was kings during the entire 30s, 40s, 20s, 10s. In 1860, there was kings. And the Civil War had, more cotton kings, and the North, Yankees had more industrial, railroad baron and steel baron kings. Kings. They cut it out. They called it Confederate kings, and then there was Yankee kings. They're all kings. They never responded to the will of the people. They definitely respond to black, indigenous people, women, or queer people. That's for damn sure. Kings, 1776, 1700s. America didn't fight to stop a king, King George. America fought to have more kings. King George was a king who said, maybe slavery isn't the worst. Maybe slavery is like not so great. And America had kings. They're called Thomas Jefferson. They're called Hamilton. They're called kings like George Washington, who had slaves. He was there. Thomas Jefferson was the king of his 160 slaves. Thomas Jefferson's black slaves who were whipped and their flesh was ripped from their body and they're bloodied and forced to do labor for his capital that he accumulated, extracting the fruit of their grapes that they harvested, the grain and the work of the hands of his maids and his black servants and the black 14-year-old that he sexually abused. Thomas Jefferson was the king of his African serfs, well, more accurately said, but he was the king of his oppressed people, right? And he called it a United States democracy. He wrote the Constitution, which was a lie the whole time, and it always has been. There has only been kings, and the United States broke away from Britain, and Britain actually partially fought the war. It didn't completely win it, but it turned thousands of African people to Britain's side because it offered them freedom against America's slavery. It was fighting to maintain slavery, to increase its primitive accumulation, to build new castles, new kingships under the new world order that was going to be America, right? The Novus Ordo Seclorum, right? Under the Annuit Coeptis eye of approval of God, right? But what it was approving was a new set of kings that would less depend on blood dynasty and heredity and more on purely dollar, purely sense, pure greed, right? But there's never been anything but kings. There's never been democracy in the United States. There's only ever been kings that have traded their crowns and their gold and their jewels and their ermine cloaks made of hundreds of thousands of dead, endangered snails, extracting the purple pigment from their bodies to produce these cloaks. And they traded those in for suits and ties, and the crown shrunk down into a pizza pocket, from a pizza-sized crown, or from like a big slice of pizza-sized pound to a pizza pocket-sized cufflink. They had little pocket squares, right, instead of these huge capes. Sometimes they're even, the same kind of purple of the ermine king cape. But these people are still kings. And they did that because some people started losing their heads south of Britain in this hellhole called Paris. So the kings transformed themselves in the European structure into the shadow kings sitting on stacks of, instead of sitting on thrones made of, the thrones obviously made of millions of human skulls of the global imperial structure, but also thrones made of jewel and thrones made of beautiful velvet and these lavish palaces with this, these soaring, decorated atriums and these beautiful halls having these glorious banquets, right? They traded all the pomp and that circumstance for the sincerity of the suit to pretend as though they had somehow changed and now they were different, right? But that was just like the liberal class. That was just a master class in misdirection, lying, malice, and mass mind manipulation. Like the opiate of the masses, that is religion. The religion of Western liberal capitalist democracy is also an opiate. And that's what liberals smoke. That's what they smoke when they go to No Kings rallies. Like they're like it's a democracy. It's not. It's a transformed monarchy where they sit on thrones of stacked $100 bills that could fill entire stadiums, but you just can't see the $100 bill stacks. It's not like Walter White sitting on those mountain of cocaine dusted Ben Franklins. Every American $100 bill has trace amounts of cocaine on it because it's all blood narco money trafficked by the descendants of the British and the French opium warrior global narco traffickers. They're called the CIA and the US Western intelligence that do all of that. So with the dirty money that, not Nicolas Maduro, it's their own US white Anglo-Saxon Protestant money drug runners in their fucking airplanes. If America wanted to fight a war on drugs, they should just shoot down all of the United States intelligence and military aircraft that are carrying mass quantities of these drugs all around the world. But they're never going to do that, right? That's the difference in the Chinese and America. The Chinese, they imprison, Canadians for having, like 200 kilograms of meth, and then they just got executed recently, right? And if America and Europe actually punish people who traffic and use vast quantities of illegal drugs, the entire United States government, all branches would be executed and dead. So would the British, French, German, Belgian, and other European countries. They'd all be dead because they'd all be executed. Because that's all they do is roll in fucking cocaine. They even joke about it. When Putin's number 2 comes out, it points it out. They just like, yeah, we're all snorting mountains of cocaine. It's just a joke, it's like Scarface with that giant pile of white is just Tuesday in all Western governments, and then half of that stuff is just about is getting amped up so they can give another fucking big business talk and have a big fun party with each other, and half of that is the money they need to fund all their dirty wars. So it's all kings. They're all sitting on they're all kings. The drug kings, drug lords, drug ladies, drug dukes, drug duchesses, drug kings, and drug queens at the top. Hillary Clinton is a drug queen, right? Complicit in these same crimes. And then we saw he died, overthrowing it, using some of that money from all their drug running to go and overthrow and destroy Libya and bound them into the Stone Age and bring back slave markets and stop the rise of the African Revolution, which was being led by Gaddafi, who brought about universal healthcare, universal education, including free university and free housing for new couples, before the United States and the Europeans destroyed it. So where was the democracy for Libya? Kings? Democrats? Where was it? Nowhere. So as a member of a colony, like many African countries of the United States, you see why I can't really celebrate your so-called protest for your so-called dictator to replace it with a so-called democracy, because you ain't. Hawaii, again, is wall-to-wall run by Democrats. Getting rid of Trump is just going to they're going to get more powerful in Hawaii. There's more real, intense, radical, powerful Hawaiian independence and sovereignty energy. The longer that Trump stays in power, it's actually been it's really kick-starting. It's really pushing the things up to another level. 75%, did you know 75% of people in Hawaii, including non-Hawaiians, want Hawaii to be independently run? Let's talk about democracy for a second. You want to talk about democracy? Let's talk about what Hawaii wants. Democrats, liberals. Let's talk about what Hawaiians and people of Hawaii of all colors and all nationalities actually want. Because you know what? 75. I'm trying to get this link. Once Twitter stops breaking my flow, I'm gonna be so ready to go. Let's go. Do you know what happens? What happened in Hawaii recently? Sorry. Yeah, here. There's a recent survey. As the U.S. Mint tells itself apart, right, wrecking its economy with terrorists attacking democratic states with the U.S. military, 75% of the people in Hawaii, including non-native Hawaiians, now support independence from the U.S. empire. Why is that, right? Well, many reasons. Ongoing military occupation, colonial crimes, poisoning the water supply, making large swaths of a million-person inhabited Oahu unlivable, the crimes in Lahaina, the ongoing over-tourism under capitalist colonial occupation, military installations everywhere, Hawaiians being forced out of our own lands, ban of our language and culture. I mean, I've talked about this a lot of times, but look, but now it's really reaching another level. Look at this. 76% of Native Hawaiians and 69% of non-Hawaiians stand behind the call for Hawaiian self-governance. 3 in 4 Hawaiian residents, 3 in 4 Hawaii residents, not just white people in Hawaii, Asian people, Japanese in Hawaii, black and white Americans that live in Hawaii, that from California, from Michigan, from Mississippi, right? Over 2/3 of them want this is non-native Hawaiians. It's 69%. That's over 2/3 want a sovereign, independent Hawaii, not a state of Hawaii. So where's the democracy, Democrats? Where's the democracy in Hawaii? There isn't. That's the answer. That's the answer, right? A no kings in Hawaii means no U.S. in Hawaii. Let me say it again. No kings in Hawaii would mean no America in Hawaii, because you are the king of Hawaii. You are the illegal, unjust tyrant. You are the King George. Democrats run. U.S. is the King George of Hawaii. You're the one that is stealing our water. You're the one that is taking all of our land and turning it into burning, overpriced golf courses. You are the ones that run this entire state, wall to wall. Every single legislative, executive branch official for the last 12 years straight and counting. Every single one. Senator, representative, state representative, council, governor, lieutenant governor, mayor, Democrat. It's even, Hawaii is more Democrat than California and New York City. That's how blue it is. It is so blue. It is so blue. You know, it makes the ocean blush. Okay. So the Democrat Party is king in Hawaii, and we want no kings in Hawaii. The Democratic Party of America is king in Hawaii. We want no kings in Hawaii. So go the fuck home, motherfucker. Anyways, that's just a side note. So that's what, you know, so you see where I'm coming from. So no kings, a voice of the people. I gotta wrap this up. 1:52, time to go. Anyway, so long story short, I mean, again, obviously, we zoom back in. If you go into these rallies, people doing a thing is better than not doing a thing. You know, that's like taking some kind of action is better than just doomering out or just sitting at home and just, oh my God, it's all over. But don't let, again, like similar to last time, let's not let the energy do not allow, coming back to that slide before I wrap this up, I think I shared that on that. Do not allow yourself to be Pied Pipered, like led by the nose, right? Led astray. If you really want no kings, if you really don't want to live in an unjust country and world, I mean, that's totally valid. If you're fed up with, what has been happening over the last year, totally valid feelings, right? But also, I mean, I'm just here to be like, let's don't take the energy, good energy, and move it in the wrong direction. You know what I'm saying? When warmonger Hillary bombed Libya into the Stone Age, Clinton promotes her peaceful No Kings protests, something is off. This is one of the like the last time, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, all these Kamala Harris out there like getting standing ovations, and then a lot of the people that are trying to really trying to fight for what's up. And I listen to a lot of people in DSA, like Black Red Guard, like Black Indigenous people of color, like more actual left, like anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-colonial activists. They're like, I don't know about these things, right? That's a lot of why I'm bringing up these like questions, right? Is Hillary Clinton, who said in 2 days be a part of the largest peaceful protest in modern American history. She was another big pusher. Basically, a lot of them are big time Democrats, big time corporate Democrats are some of the biggest forces behind this thing. They got a lot of money. They got a lot of money. They got to pay people, and they got a lot of energy and time. They can push into these things to kind of get people out there, and and that's a lot of where this is coming from. And that's people like this great people like this. I mean, this is part of the reason why the United States is falling apart is because of people like that in the Democratic Party taking actions like continued imperialism and trying to use America's money and resources to blow up Africa, blow up countries around the world, right? And this hawkish imperial oligarchic policy. She was particularly she openly cackled like a witch and and not like a good witch, like somebody just trying to practice indigenous medicine and we call it witch. I mean, so she actually cackled like the Wicked Witch of the West. I mean, she's like her and Margaret Thatcher. They're vying for #1 most wicked witch of the extremely wicked West. You know what I'm saying? She was like, ha ha ha, we saw he died. Look at that foolish leader. She it was really gross actually, celebrating this guy's torturous death. He was literally tortured to death. She laughed about that. She also said can we just drone bomb Assange, for just trying to tell the truth about this global horrible military industrial complex and these collateral atrocities that were being committed, and so people like that's who produced Trump, because the Democratic Party, the center, the party that at least says it cares, has shown that it lies time and time again, and people have kept falling through the cracks for the last 40 years of neoliberalism, and now it's at the point where people said, "Well, that's it. I'm gonna go to something else." And on one side is MAGA fascism and all kind of other other ideas, neo-monarchism, as people are. I just saw Mencius Moldbug, Curtis Yarvin is back doing talk shows. And then, and then there's people on the, on the left side going, oh, well, what do we have over here? Socialism, communism, a revolution. We got all these other things happening. Anti-fascism, which is apparently illegal in the United States. And so the Democrats are trying to come back together and pull the center back together after we've had at least 2 decades of the center failing to hold. There's that Yeats, or is it Keats or Yeats poem from the early 20th century. The worst are filled with this, intense power, and where are the best? The best are weak, they're cowering, they're not there, and the worst are leading. The center cannot hold. It's this time of chaos. It was talking about the collapse of kind of a centrist liberal order, and capitalism decays towards fascism. It's going to choose Macron when he lost to a more left-leaning party. The oligarchy, the King Macron of France, and the kings of France, the banking, corporate, France's medical industry, France's imperialists, that class of people at the upper class, all the descendants of the Dauphin and the Dauphin and all the lords and ladies of Versailles, right? The feudal lords and ladies are the same capitalist lords and ladies. They're the same class of people. That's part of the trick of Western and the lie of Western history is that these lords and ladies and tyrants and King Georges and these horrible monarchs, they all got the dustbin of history, and there's these new people, these different people. They're called elected representatives and titans of industry. They're completely different. These capitalists and these democratically elected political party representatives, right? But they're actually literally the same people. They're literally the descendants, or they're all family members of, or they literally are lords and ladies. But they try to transform themselves in that process, putting on suits, taking off their capes, taking off their crowns. They're all kings. They're all kings. They're all kings. And Hillary Clinton, right, is on one of these, right? But it's failed. They've failed to hold that system they put together. It's collapsed into fascism and the other left alternatives. And she's trying to pull it back together. And I don't know. This is the thing where it's it seems to people that maybe don't understand the history, have forgot the history. Liberals are they have the attention span of half of a gnat. So when something hasn't been in the news, or if somebody says something from the mouthpiece of the CIA jukebox, Democrat edition, like Rachel Maddow, or talk Democracy Now. If somebody says something, that is the reality for that moment, and if they say something else, then it changes. I've watched it happen to me, like my dad, these are like college educated people with PhDs, like, and if the NPR or whatever station they listen to, the CNN or whatever they're listening to, says one thing, if their thought leader says something and it says something else later, it just changes to whatever it's supposed to be. You think the correct thoughts. That's how movie reviews and game reviews work too. I was like, him is bad because Forbes and Rotten Tomatoes and all these other 5-star critics said so. And but Jordan Peele's first. I just watched him, and Holly and I watched him, and we watched I watched Get Out and Us, and it's like, this is like just like, it's not even directed by Jordan Peele, but it's like very similar. It's a horror movie, saying a lot of it. It's a very smart, non-white created, black produced horror movie. I mean, what? But it's just like, if your thought leader says this equal good, then you follow the party line. You make up reasons why that's correct, because there's money, there's power, prestige, network, LinkedIn network. Oh my God, there's so many dollars attached to that. So much brunch to be had if you say the correct taste-made thing in the church of the liberal cathedral. I mean, not to throw, Benjamin Mobug is a clown, and he wants to be Benjamin Mobug, Peter Thiel, and Elon just want to be their own neo-feudal techno kings. That's why I made Neofeud, is to basically do a satire on the Democrats and the Republicans and these neo-monarchist techno kings all at the same time. But like, I don't know that that's going to hold. Like, if people stop at, okay, well, I'm so mad that Trump is in power, and you have a very short memory about like what has happened over the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 40, 100, 500 years. If you actually like look at it more closely from a more comprehensive, dare I say, dialectical materialist perspective. You look at it from an indigenous perspective. You look at it from a spiralic temporality perspective. That's a circular time rather than a linear time as well. But if you look at it from beyond simply the last few days, this headline, this most recent set of tweets. So it's probably a problem with only focusing on the news. You can miss that perspective, which is what the goal. It's what they would like you to, is to become as displace as many of your neurons' capabilities to AI, and to get COVID 7 times so you get microthrombosis and neural omeletification so that you can't think at all. And any brain cells that still function, they would like that to be maximally only focused on what is happening right now, and to make sure that you are adhering to the correct party line, correct thought leader line, and because if you do that, then you just are led by the nose of people like this in the No King's actions. It's not going to change anything. In fact, it's probably going to it could result in something worse than Trump. Trump is not the worst thing possible. Trump, he's more of an opportunist. He's not really super deeply diehard, believes in the Hitlerian, full white supremacy, really like a diehard, dyed in the wool believer in that. There are people like that. Like I don't know, Richard Spencer. There's the Molyneux. There's the Steve Bannon. I mean, there's all kind of other creatures out there. There's all kind of other entities out there, right? There's like people who like absolutely believe in that. There's some of like total apocalypse cult sort of people as well, like Dr. Strangelove types as well. I mean, some of them are arguably more those kind of, let's end the world. If imperial capitalist white supremacy is going to end, we have to just destroy this earth with nuclear fire. Like, that's the people that said, hey, 50% chance or 60% chance of nuclear war if we fire long-range missiles from U.S. and EU supplied, armed, and directed. If we shoot these long-range missiles into Russia, there's 60% chance of nuclear war potentially. Let's take it, right? That kind of mind. Those people could be put back in charge. That could be more dangerous than Trump, arguably. All right, Trump, he hasn't shown himself to do that. It's more dangerous inside the United States, or at least it could be not necessarily more dangerous. It's more anxiety-inducing, more directly threatening to certain people in the United States, right? But it could be somebody. It could be like a real horrible, like worse than Blinken neocon. You could get like straight up American Hitler that really believes we have to just completely exterminate anybody that isn't white. Because Trump is like doing a lot of actions, but a lot of that is because a lot of where his base has moved towards, where he has been able to get traction, right? He just pivots to wherever he can get the most applause from. Like, he didn't start out there, but he went there because that's where he started like getting more people following. Kind of like Jack Dorsey, right? Oh, where can I get followers? People like MAGA? Okay, well, we'll let that happen because I need Twitter stock price got to go up, buddy. Right? Look at Sam Altman. Hey, buddy, where's the stock price? Sora, we can artificially generate your centaur porn now. You can do ChatGPT will talk to you about, having tentacle sex with you all you want now, baby, because I need that money because I run OpenAI. It's a capitalist scam tonight. So, right, he's pivoting. Sam Altman is pivoting to titties because Sam Altman got no there. He even said that. I don't know why people listen to me, but I got to do this because my job is I'm supposed to make money for this OpenAI that's not open, and it's not AI. It's synthetic stupidity. It's Open SS, not just because it pushes Nazi shit, but it's synthetic stupidity. But he's got to make money, so he's like, okay, everybody, you can have Chat GPT will talk dirty to you now, even though I said it wouldn't before, but I need the money. Jack Dorsey, I need the money. Donald Trump, hey, where's my money and my votes and my people gonna come from? Oh, MAGA, all right, let's go. Somebody who actually needs, no, I don't care where the votes come from. The world needs to be cleansed of the impurities of the non-Caucasian people. There's those figures are still out there. You know what I'm saying? They're still out there. I'm not saying that ICE is not bad and horrible. I'm not saying all these violations of posse comitatus and the violations, not even calling the Insurrection Act and deploying military forces into cities. That's all horrible, right? And there's all kind of forces around him. Stephen Miller is, more dyed in the wool on those things. But you could have President Stephen Miller. You could have President Stephen. You could have President RFK. You can have a guy literally with fucking worms in his brain. That have eaten holes. His brain is like Swiss cheese of worm food. And he's going to be like, everybody, what we need is no hospitals. Affordable Care Act. Nobody needs Band-Aids or any care. In fact, I'm disbanding all hospitals. I'm ordering all hospitals and clinics. Trans healthcare, no, there's no healthcare at all. No, everyone is going to be ordered to swim in. There's not going to be any more plumbing. I'm going to back up all your sewers, and everyone is going to have an American swimming pool. In the 1800s, Americans had 3 swimming. They said, we were mocked for having 3 swimming pools. One for when we wanted to swim, one hot, one cold, and one empty for when we didn't want to swim. Every American will have a swimming pool full of raw sewage, and every American will have to submerge themselves for 3 minutes per day and take a raw sewage jacuzzi bath for the wellness and health of America. So we can weed out the weak from the strong. You're going to have to swim in Giardia and E. coli, and whoever lives, that will be the great American race. Because I'm RFK and I have brain. What is that word that means little slithery things? Oh, the worms ate it. Oh, there it is. There it is. So, you can have President RFK. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, that's it. So, long story short, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. No, sorry, 207. If you go to this rally, go to do whatever you got to do. Do what you got to do where you got. I can't tell you what to do. You're going to do this whatever you like it or not. But also, try to get as many people as possible to try to think about things and think about more comprehensively, and maybe help educate and move people more to the left as possible, or help maybe, I don't know, you probably can't take over this whole thing, but you can't take over these days, but find people that may be more able to more attuned to listening to and considering your politics and ideas at these actions, because I don't think that these actions alone are going to do too much. I don't think they're gonna do very much based upon what I have seen. They're gonna help some people feel a little better. The Democrats might rally a little, a little poll points maybe. It's not gonna stop the main process, which is not. It's actually being driven by the global South, like I said. That's gonna keep happening. And what people can do is to push for anti-capitalist, anti-colonial, total liberation for all people, and undoing of the entire capitalist oligarchic structure of the United States and all other imperial capitalist entities across the world, including all the Western countries. The Western countries are some of Spain and France had some solidarity marches. I mean, you need Spain and France. You got your own problems, man. You got to undo your own oligarchic, capitalist, corrupt, and fascist systems in your own places. What are you talking about? Y'all got kings. Y'all kings. You know, we was kings. Y'all was kings and still are got kings. You know, king. You got that king shit going on. You know, like I'm gonna get a Burger King crowd and just wear it for the rest of the day. Just be like, hell yeah, battle in America, land of the kings. You talking about no kings? No kings. I'm gonna call. Where's my ice? I'm gonna call my ice to arrest your butt and throw you into a dungeon. It's time to go in the stocks in the pillory. You know, you need the oubliette. Donald Trump is just going to build an oubliette soon. That's where we're going to put you when you start talking about him like he's not a king. Like, real king got oubliettes to disappear people. That's the French king. Oubliette, you know, it's like putting well, they already have it. It's called Guantanamo. Anyways, thanks everybody for watching. This has been the Silver Spook live stream, and if you want to help us out, don't forget you can give us direct support to ko-fi.com/silverspook. ko-fi.com/silverspook for a one-time direct donation for the education that we try our best to do. You can also help us out at patreon.com/Neofeud to give us ongoing support on the Silver Spook cooperative. So we're still working on Neofeud 2. I'm deep in the music. I finished I'm almost done with 3 songs now. I'm almost getting a song a day almost, or a music piece, one of the music tracks for Neofeud 2. So I'm deep in the music. Once I'm done with the music, it's on to testing, and then Neofeud 2 is coming out. So that's where we're at with that. If you're wondering about how the game is going at Silver Spook Games, so if you get updates on the game stuff, you get updates on Silver Spook Cooperative and our educational and our land back and restorative justice, indigenous, agricultural, land preservation, non-capitalist land and nature and food system preservation that we do here at the Silver Spook Cooperative. You can get access to all that, and of course access to Silver Spook Discord and Silver Spook University. I talk about education. Silver Spook University is all of the content that we've been able to categorize so far, that we've produced here, over 1,000 hours of it, which is educational. To a large extent with mine and Holly's work, and all of that categorized according to topics from Hawaiian specific, Hawaii history, Asia, Africa, or Central South America, or indigenous specific history, economic specific topics, race and gender focus, more technology and science focus, because all these are more holistic. I kind of integrate a lot of different topics into any particular stream or video or thread. But yeah, so all that is categorized for your benefit, and so when you become a Patreon member, you get access to all of that as well. And of course, don't forget you can grab Neofeud on Steam, which is Neofeud, is retro anti-capitalist cyberpunk adventure game that I made over the course of 2.5 years as the writer, artist, musician, and half of the voice acting. And Neofeud is also available on. If you'd like to help us out, you can also get Neofeud, and you can leave it a very short review or a longer review if you want, and it really does help us get the game discovered in the Steam algorithm. So if you liked it, don't forget to leave a review, and it really does help us out. You can also get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and Mac and Linux. There's also Decolonators, a game about kicking capitalist colonizer butts. Decolonators is a game about getting no kings in Vietnam. If you want to learn how Vietnam removed the kings, aka France and U.S. imperialism, Decolonators to show you how to get no kings. That's one way to get no kings right there. Anyways, and build socialism. And there's Indigenous Star, Paging with Gun, and Terminus Machina, and Neofeud Short Story Collection. If you like reading things, these are some other options as well. The Neofeud Short Story Collection, Terminus Machina Short Story Collection, and Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christian culture, critiquing that culture from a perspective of Mary in the Bible. You can also follow at Silver Spook Games at Mastodon.social, at Silver Spook Games at Wandering.shop on Mastodon, and you can also follow Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook and all these other places. And you can follow them, at the wherever you would like to, and of course Silver Spook Games for the games related stuff. And you can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue. Holly's on Instagram and Twitter, and Holly is of course moderator here and works on myself at the Silver Spook Cooperative, and we're also parents of Hawaiian children in this presently, but maybe not too much long, U.S. king occupied Hawaii. And so anyways, let us wrap that up. Thanks all of our Patreon supporters. Without your support, it's hard to keep doing this work. So thank you so much for all of our Patreon supporters. Really appreciate that. I am a bit late, so I gotta get out of here. Thanks everybody. And we will see you. Keep your marriage keep your marriage spots. Be excellent to each other. No kings. No kings. I agree. I totally agree. 100% agree with that. No kings. You know, that's a good slogan. I don't think you should just unnecessarily be violent, even though I know they're adamant about peaceful protest and this and that. And I can't just be like, oh yeah, that's great to be violent. But you know, all means necessary for liberation and restoring justice and removal of unjust systems, including capitalism, oligarchy, fascism, monarchy, dictatorship of corporations, and otherwise.